Welcome to Cyber Survivor. I'm your host, Dan Dotson, and today I'm joined by Dr. Ali, who is the professor in Canadian Research Chair in Cybersecurity and Threat Intelligence. I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Before we jump in, I'm really interested to understand, how did you get into cybersecurity? Talk to me a little bit about your journey and tell us what got you excited about the research you're doing.
Absolutely sure. I was doing cybersecurity from the time that I was an undergrad student, right? So even back then, I was working on the database security. Then I did my master and PhD both in security and computing. Worked with a couple of consultancy companies for a few years in cybersecurity. Then I did a postdoctoral in digital forensics, and then I became a faculty member first at the University of Sheffield in the UK. And then I moved to Canada, University of Guelph, Canada, built two master programs, Master of Cybersecurity and Threat Intelligence and Master of Cybersecurity Leadership here. And I'm the director of the Canada Cyber Foundry, which is the research center focused in cybersecurity here at the University of Guelph at the moment.
That's great. And over those years, how have you seen cybersecurity change from your perspective? I mean, there's been a lot of, obviously the adversaries are continuing to attack us, their attack vectors have changed, but as you think about, how have you seen the landscape from your lens?
I can tell you the only thing that is constant, not changing in cybersecurity is change, right? As the technology is adopting, I mentioned I started my career in cybersecurity working on relational database security, that these days is like by default, considered by default in all the systems, right? And I have seen all these generational changes in the technology. We moved to mobile devices, and then the mobile cybersecurity become a big challenge, and like bring your own devices security. Then the world shifted to focus a lot on the OT and OT security. Then cloud came and become the top priority. And these days, AI, and probably the next one will be quantum computing security. So what I'm trying to tell you is, in the sense, change is part of our day-to-day life in cybersecurity, right? The only thing that I am sure would happen in the future as well is, as the new technologies are being adopted, as the new ways have been built, adversaries are finding other ways, other means to exploit them, and people like us are responsible to make sure that businesses are secure and resilient against all those cyber attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. And how are you thinking through building curriculum, right? You talked about building some of these programs to help educate the next generation of cyber warriors. How do you think about adapting curriculum at the speed to the adversaries adapting? I mean, that's got to be a challenge for you.
Absolutely, absolutely, right. That's probably, I would say half of my time, I'm an educator as well, university professor. So making sure that I am preparing the next generation with the content, with the material that would be useful in the longer term is a top priority. And I can tell you the shelf life of most of our materials in the university is less than 5 years. You just imagine that, right? I am having colleagues here that, say, in other departments, Department of Geography or History, that they have never changed their content since they joined the university 30 years ago, right? So saying that, that's a significant challenge, because there are two things directly impacting the curriculum: the changes in technology and changes in adversary, right? Tactics, techniques, and procedures of the adversary, right? Usually the changes in technologies are every 5 to 6 years. New technologies are coming and you need to adopt it. But then meanwhile, all these new techniques, new tactics, new ways that the attackers are exploiting the system, defenses are evolving, would give you a constant upgrade in your course materials, right? For example, every professor or every educator these days have a different approach, right? But for example, for myself, um, I always do everything in a hands-on manner, which means you rarely see me having any slides. I'm just opening up the screen, sharing the screen, and we start coding, learning by doing, because otherwise what I prepare would not be useful in a couple of years, right? So even the method of teaching in cybersecurity is kind of different than the traditional methods, right, of delivery, right? Here, we need to be hands-on, we need to be practical, and we need to deliver as the attacks are evolving, right? And as you are engaging with adversaries.
Yeah. And are you seeing a lot of demand from students to take cybersecurity courses? I mean, one of the big kind of macro challenges we talk about a lot is there's a shortage of cybersecurity experts out there, right? And so how have you seen, folks that want to advance their careers, are they interested in it? Or do you have more demand than you have supply as far as room in the classroom? Or how are you seeing that play out?
Right. I mean, I would say, generally speaking, in cybersecurity, similar to other tech fields, we always have the waves, right, of the demands. Demands go up and down, right? But we are always having like the higher low in terms of a demand, which means the demand is always going up as the new technologies are adopting, and we are seeing more digitalization in the world in general, right? In terms of cybersecurity, we always see in the news headline that there is a shortage of cybersecurity professionals, and I would say that would be the case for at least the next 5 years that we can predict. Who knows how the world would look like after 5 years from now, right? But anyway, for the next 5 years, I can say that there would be that. And in terms of our old programs, yes, we get a lot of demands, right, for our master programs, especially at university, right? And I would say, as long as the program is keeping up with the changes in technology and offers clear pathways to industry or to make impact in general to the world, the demand would be still there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what type of research are you doing? Are there areas of interest that you have that you're exploring deeply as you think about the landscape?
Right, sure. I mean, historically, I am focused on cyber threat intelligence and cyber threat hunting as the two fields of the core research, right? But in the past 4 years, 4 to 5 years, a lot of my time and effort is dedicated on securing the AI systems, right? The AI based systems, right? So these days, a lot of our focus is on developing methodologies and the techniques for, say, reteaming of different AI systems. On more recently on self-healing systems, self-healing AI systems. So these are like these AI systems that once a vulnerability is detected or being detected, they can automatically heal themselves. So that has been the focus of the last couple of years. And we are trying to combine the potentials of the reinforcement learning algorithms and the techniques with the requirements that we have in cybersecurity, so we can respond and we can address the vulnerabilities in the shortest time, at a one time, fingers crossed, in real time manner.
Yeah. And where do you think we're at in that journey? I mean, do you think that this self-healing is here now? Do you think it's going to come in the future? Any insights that you've gleaned from your research?
Well, yeah, I can tell that academic world is pounding significantly in this direction, right? So for the last couple of years, uh, on the industry, I am gradually like seeing a couple of startups in the Bay Area that started picking up and productizing these ideas, right? But my guess is, in the next couple of years, these self-healing systems in general, and specifically for the AI systems, I can elaborate why they are more important in the AI systems, would pick up, and that would be a demand. When you are having systems that's supposed to make decisions in almost real time and execute on those decisions, the security of those systems need to happen at the real time, right? And that means you need to have that self-healing systems, right? Self-healing as a general idea is not new. We have seen it in the past in the cloud system, that we have like self-healing cloud systems or self-healing networking systems that we had, right? But usually the timeline that you have for the self-healing in the cloud or the network system is long enough that even if we are not giving a real-time response, that would be okay, which means an administrator or a support user or an engineer can go and apply the changes or make the changes in the system. But the challenge with the AI systems is AI systems may make decisions that have not been made before. So we are in an unknown status of the system, and we need to make sure that even that decision that have been made that would be passed later on to agents are secure. And if it's not secure, then there should be a self-healing mechanism that would come and correct it, so we can contain the incidents or the attacks in a manner that is reasonable, right? This is still a big debate in the community, as you know, that what is the proper SLA agreement in terms of responding to the attacks targeting AI systems. Some of the professionals are thinking that if an AI system is targeted, you need to respond immediately, right? Because the action is already made by the system, right? So if that is the case, if that's where the industry is moving, that we are requiring almost immediate containment of the attack, then the self-healing system would be a must.
Yeah. And do you think that in that self-healing process, it would be all AI driven, or do you think there's going to be a human that's either in the loop or on the loop, depending on how you think about that? I mean, from a speed perspective and where that's going to mature into.
Well, the thing is, um, all the self-healing systems, or I would say generally speaking, for all the AI systems that are making a decision, we need to have the option for the human to be in the loop and correct the decision or adjust the decision as it has been made, right? Theoretically, saying it theoretically is easy. But when you go to practice, right, you will see that these AI systems are making tons of decisions in the speed that it's impossible for a human being to monitor them and keep up with that, right? I mean, I don't know whether in your show we can talk about specific companies. Can we or not? Oh, sure. So we were talking with like a couple of guys from NVIDIA, and NVIDIA as a company has like almost unlimited resources, right? And they were having challenges in terms of keeping up with the required human in the loop for their AI vulnerability assessment system. So I'm talking about one single system and a huge company, right? So when you see at that scale, that's a challenge. We need to rethink our definition of what we mean when we talk about human in the loop, right? Because a lot of decision, a lot of actions that are being made, especially by autonomous system, is already made, right? So as a human, you would like to always have the option to understand why an AI system has done that and how that decision has been implemented into the system, but you may not be able to correct it all the time, right? Especially if the impact is already made. That's where we actually having this self-healing systems, right? The self-healing systems have different aspects, right? There are like 7 aspects that we can talk about it right later on if you want to, right? But one of the aspects of that containment is not containing the adversary activities, but containing the activities that have not been well defined for the system. So if this system has not very well defined to conduct action A, that self-healing system is supposed to stop it. Even if it is not malicious, it's going to stop and wait for a human to make a decision whether the new boundaries of the actions of this system would allow these actions or not.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's a balance of like speed and can the humans even keep up if it's moving, so many transactions, making so many decisions, we won't be able to keep up. I think that's part of the fear that we have in healthcare, right? Is as we start applying AI in healthcare, whether it's, on the technology infrastructure side or in, decision support, clinical decision support, without having that in the loop, if it makes a bad decision or a decision we don't understand how or why it made the decision, I think that's what has people nervous.
I can tell you, like, two of the fields that we are day to day talking to, and they are having serious concerns of this specific lacking of the self-healing system, are legal system and the healthcare, right? In the legal system in countries like Canada that have constitutional laws, right? If you have a specific part of law being passed to the court and court for some reason approve that case, that would become part of the future laws. So the future courts can rely on. And there were already scenarios and the cases that the AI was generating fake cases, put it inside the lawyer's right document, and that was passing the courts, which means if that is passed, a fake law, a fake statement, a clause in the law has been already passed, and a court has been make a decision based on that, and the future courts can cite that decision and continue, right? So that's a significant challenge, right? And in the healthcare, right? I mean, uh, when you look into it, as a cybersecurity person, we can explain all these risks to the decision makers, but we leave the decision to them, right? And I am explaining most of these risks to the healthcare professionals. Like, for example, if you let the AI to autonomously monitor your clinical data and make some sort of um, decision or some sort of prediction or some sort of recommendation, right, of what for that specific situation, you are risking the AI to make decisions on the domains that it doesn't even have the proper knowledge of, right, or has not been designed to make decision on those systems, right? But at the same time, I understand that they are dealing with a scenario that they want to increase the profit, so they want to serve as many clients as they can in the shortest amount of time. And we have shortage of the doctors. You cannot put the doctors to just keep checking every single decision of the AI systems, right, that have been made, right? So we usually explain these and leave the decision to the persons, to the people who are the decision maker there. But or a strong recommendation all the time is to make sure that you are having those self-healing layers around the AI, so you can contain, at least when the decision, when the AI is making a system that is supposed not to make or is beyond its boundaries of the action, right? So that can be practical, right? And only practical thing that we can think of, at least up until the point that the accuracy and precision of these AI systems go so high that we can trust them for making any decisions, right? And I can tell you, my colleagues that are like in university would tell you that that never happens, right? But anyway.
Yeah. So do you think it's more practical for, the AI to be applied to a bunch of clinical information and then it present options or recommendations or insights, if you will, to a clinician that they may then review the insights to help tailor the care plan? Or do you think we're going to be in a world where ultimately it could take it a step further and, the AI could actually make the recommendation that would then be instituted into that care plan without, first being seen by somebody clinically?
Right. I mean, okay. I can tell you about, again, what I would like to see in theory, and that means let the AI give the recommendation, and then there would be a doctor or someone with enough knowledge to make a decision on that. But, I can share you a couple of stories, real life stories with real specialists that we are talking to, right? That sometimes the recommendations that have been given by AI is like AI is listing a few recommendation, and as a human, based on the limited knowledge, they think that, say, the third recommendation is the best, but actually the fourth recommendation is better because AI knows more than them. So when that AI crosses that boundary, especially the boundary that we want the AI to cross, which means, these days we can build AI agents that their knowledge of the health system of, say, human is way more than a single doctor, right? Because they can look into of all these data, historic data, the specific patients, even background, right, where they are coming from. Even I have seen that there are some prediction systems that are looking at the events that has been happening in that area, especially on the psychology field, right? But when they are going to make recommendations. So sometimes the best recommendation of the AI is rejected by a human because that human doesn't have all those history, right? Doesn't know everything behind it, right? So what I'm trying to say is, if that is the case, if that's how we want to use the AI system, which means as a recommendation system, right? Well, we could just send the patient, they will give the story, and that's it, right? That a human can make a decision. What I would like to see, or what we are talking about when we talk about the benefits of an AI first world, it means we have AI agents that can suggest things that a human alone cannot make those kind of conclusion and recommendations, right? So the challenges that we have at the moment is not that we cannot make a system that gives a recommendation. We can, and then a human being can just be in the loop and approve it. But whether or not that human is approving the best decision or not, that's a big question there, right? And then there are other questions, like, for example, if we remove the human from that loop, where the liability sits in case the decision is wrong, right? So I don't want to just go through that can of worm because this talk would take forever, right? But what I'm saying is, like, there are other challenges there, right? So at the moment, we are living in an AI assisted world, not an AI first world. That all the AI is doing is assisting us, right? But we are pushing the boundaries fairly quickly to an AI first world. And after a while, when we see that those AIs are making decisions that are much better than a single human being, even if that single human being is a specialist doctor, right? We may go to that world that no, let's AI to overcome the decision of that specialist, especially if these reasoning systems that we have for the AI systems are getting more advanced. So those reasons can be provided, right? So I would hope that at a point, we would be using AI as a recommender with reasoning, right? So as a human in the loop, you can read the reasons, and if you are convinced that the AI is giving better reasons, you would just accept that AI decision that has been made, right? But we are exactly at the middle of that transition at the
Yeah.
moment.
How long do you think that transition is going to take? I mean, are I
All
mean,
right, all
yeah,
right,
I
all right,
mean,
all right. So you are starting along the way. So let's do that, right? Okay.
I mean, this is what we talk to our clients about, right?
Of
Like,
course, of
I mean,
course, of
this will be
course,
really fascinating.
of
Love your
course,
opinion on this.
of course, right? I am going to give a 3 hours lecture later on today, specifically on this topic, right? But I can tell you, the thing is, we haven't seen that kind of. I mean, that's this kind of fast pace of the change in the technology is unprecedented. We haven't seen it before, right? So if you look into the examples in the history, so for example, when the steam engine has created, it took about 100 years for the shipping industry to move from those old ships to the ships that have been designed for the steam engine to work on, right? If you look into the factories, right, from the time that we have electricity, it takes about 50 years, 50 years for the factories to redesign, rebuild themselves, and then the electricity is inside them, right? So all those big columns have been removed, right? So, I mean, I have all those slides on that. If you want, I can share with you later on, right? Anyway, uh, but when you look into the how quickly internet has changed the digital system, and then how quickly AI is adopting, right? Um, I would say the change would come very fast. I can tell you in some of the fields, say if we are talking about software testing or code generation, right? I am already seeing these changes happening, right? I am already seeing that the AI is generating the codes and testing the systems that are fantastic. I mean, you cannot expect a human being to even be able to remember or know all those vulnerabilities, all those weaknesses at the point of time, right? And do that, right? So on those specific fields, I would say the AI is already breaking, right, that ceiling and is better than a human, but not in other fields, right? So it's industry by industry. I would say in the financial sector, soon we will see that the AI is going to easily bypass any human decisions that have been made there, right? Especially if you talk about trading, especially if you're talking about transaction management. What I'm talking about, like the things that have little to no human intervention, can be all trained and generated with the digital data. The more that you come to the inputs that are needed from the outside world, the more it takes for the AI to be able to bypass the human on it, right? So that's the rule of thumb that I have, right? So it depends on which industry we are talking as, right? So for example, if you are in software development, etc., I would say it's already better, right? Of course, the companies still need to figure out how they should implement it and how it should be there, right? So we still have the governance challenge, but in terms of technology challenge, it's already passed, right? If you come to like education, it would be very soon, right? I mean, I was joking to my colleagues in the university as well that we are not only building the next AI that replaces us, but we are building the next AI that is much better than us, right? So okay. Anyway, so what I'm saying is like in education, you would see this change fairly quickly, right? And I would say even in education, from the governance man, it's much easier to figure out how the AI can help in compare with say software developments, right? But in the healthcare, we still have years, I would say years to go to be in the position that those decisions can be made autonomously by the AI systems.
Yeah, and I think the decisions, although the impacts may be big in other industries, they're different, right? I mean, to your point, automating the credit writing or underwriting or rating for a life insurance policy or something like that, like certainly has big ramifications, actuarial ramifications of risk, but no lives are in jeopardy, right? I mean, we start infusing that into healthcare, and that's really the tricky balance we're trying to all figure out is, you know, how do we, assist and then ultimately power, to your point, these clinical decisions through the lens of not, disrupting care, right? Improving care. And that's,
Sure.
for me, that I think that's going to take some iterations and time before we get full trust there.
Absolutely, yes, yes. And it's not only iterations of time. I would say it depends on the culture and the existing practices as well. So, for example, what I find is in less regulated countries, say African countries, giving an example here, right? They are much more open to adopt these AI and take the decision as it is, right? Because I am saying that that's probably the only option that they have most of the time when they are going with it. And after going with that few times and they see it works, then they trust it, right? And then it becomes part of the norm, right? So that's another interesting thing that is unfolding in the world, that regardless of who is building the best AI, what societies would adopt it and get the most benefit of it, right? Uh, let's wait and see, right? History can tell us, right, a few things about how it's going to adopt. But what I'm saying is, like, we cannot undermine the role of that culture and the existing systems available, right? I am seeing, especially in the poorer community, that as the AI becomes the only or the most reliable source of the healthcare advice, they are accepting it, right? And they are not going to doctors anymore. They are like, why should I go there, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
why should I travel? I don't know, 3 hours to get to the doctor and then wait in his or her office for few hours and then get an advice that is subpar with what I can get on the Chat GPT, as an example, right?
Yeah, well, we're seeing that already. I mean, even before the AI boom, before ChatGPT, from the patient's perspective, they would use Google, right? Before they went to the doctor, they would do all of their own research on Google, right? And so that was a point of frustration. Now they're taking and dumping all of their results into ChatGPT or Gronk or whichever one you want to use, and they're taking that. They can get a clinical action plan from that today. You
Right
know,
away. That's right. That's right.
the question is, how effective is it going to be, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that would be, I would say, the experience is different, in different places, in different location. I mean, I was talking with a few students of us that are recently joining, and they were like, in our society, in our country, people feels that the doctors who are there are less educated than the advice of the chat GPT. So they already, the chat GPT advice is better than the education system that they had, therefore their health system, right? And that would make the people trusting it more, right? And the implications of that is significant, right? I mean, imagine we would live in a world that everyone trusts AI, right? And then there would be even questions around what would happen if that AI is wrong, what adversaries could do if they have control over that AI, right? I mean, even the rule of cyber war is going to be redefined if you see societies are believing it, right? It would be, say, we used to see social network campaigns if we want to impact, say, a specific big event in a country. What if that the next impact can be made through recommendation or suggestions that have been made by the AI? What if that the people start relying on the AI system to decide which candidate they vote for, right? Isn't it that those AI systems become the best targets for any nation state, right? And that would rewrite the rules of the cyber war, right? Again.
Yeah, how do you see that unplaying? Because I mean, look, there's certainly the influence of social media as an example into whether you call it propaganda or influence in various countries, whether it's elections or political or war or whatever. We're seeing that play out today in various forms, and then the algorithm feeds you more and more and starts leaning you more and more towards one direction. Um, to your point, what happens when that type of activity starts influencing these AI from a cyber perspective? I mean, how do you see that play out if we're relying on it from a clinical decision perspective?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, great questions. What I can tell you is, it was like a couple of years ago that it was on top of every national level cybersecurity agency of how we can control deep fake campaigns or like social networking campaigns during election, right? Or during important events, right? uh, no one could predict that uh, the social network is gradually losing its value in terms of the recommendation that it gives, and the people are now relying on another source, which is these AI agents or AI services that they have, right? And the reason for that is, if the people get used to taking recommendation for other things in their life from the AI, they would definitely ask AI for about like what is the best whatever person, right? That I need to choose. Uh, and how we can even first identify if an adversary has tried to impact that decision, because there are different ways that you could impact the AI decision making. One is through the supply chain, like giving it wrong data somewhere through the publicly available information. But that to me is the easiest to detect, right? Imagine that if we see a social networking campaign that is running and it's just distributing fake information, what we could do is we could easily make the AI to not look into that or just forget that information. That's not difficult, right? But the more difficult parts would be like, what if that a nation, a state is able to bypass guardrails and change some of the weighting or some of the ways that these AI decisions are making the decision? Who can find that? I mean, at the moment, I don't know who is monitoring or checking or validating even the weighting and the LLM structure of the OpenAI. Giving an example here, or Grok, whatever, right? We don't even know, right? I don't even know whether they know. Okay, because these systems are huge, right? And knowing how they have been impacted, is it, would it be a day that we would have an employee in one of these organizations that could open up a port or open up an application and feed whatever he or she wants to those systems, close it, and go unnoticed? Who is monitoring those internal employee attacks, right, or compromises on those LLMs, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, what we are seeing, say, for platforms like Llama, is because they are sharing the code and everything as an external evaluator, we can check, we can scan, we can see, right? For the other companies, we don't know, and most of these companies don't even share the data that they have been using for training those systems or are using, right? We are being told that they are scrapping the web. I know that, but that's not all part of the decision that they make, right? This scrapping is like we're oversimplifying the process for distillation, right? In the AI system, a lot is happening, right? And all those supply chain, all those systems needs to be secure, needs to be monitored, right?
Yeah. And at scale, you won't be able to keep up with the amount of transactions to be able to tell, right? I mean, that's kind of the challenge. Like, there's a great debate of like how many people that are on X are bots. Like, no one really knows the answer to that because it's scaled so far, you can't keep your arms around it, right? I mean, I think that's one of the challenges we hear people think through when you think about applications in healthcare, for sure.
And with adding that feature of the memory, I know that we are at time as well, so I'm not going to talk about it. But saying that, with adding the feature of the memory that we are saying that AI systems start storing for different users, you never know what are the deviations from their first status or the normal status has been happen for every individual users, right? So what you would see is, if you are a user that were supporting one type of idea or one sort of activities, actions, right? After a while, your AI is going to please you. So you are going to only hear about that and you will go further back there, right? If the AI is your only source of the information or main source of information, you will be taken away, right? Deep into that past, right? That is more in your memory, right? I mean, from the individual point of view, that may not make any differences, right? Or it's not important. It's like it's free society, anyone can do whatever they want. But from the business point of view, when you look into it, what it means is, if you have employees who were making wrong decisions or they were doing wrongdoing, you're going to keep doing that with that AI recommendation for the foreseeable future until something big happens, right? So that these are the challenges that I am rarely seeing being on top of any CISO or any cybersecurity professional at the moment, right? Thinking at the user level, how can I make sure that this user is still getting the recommendation that falls into my organization policies and procedures, right? I mean, I don't know how many of you have seen an organization that, say, scans the memory of every single chat agent for every employee to make sure that it meets my organization policy, right? I came across couple, right, in my career, right, that they are going at that level. But you can see, as they have memory, there will be deviation, and when that deviation happens, and then go see, because we have provided this as a tool for the employees to get the advice, and if the tool is giving the wrong advice, who is responsible for that? And the reason for that wrong advice is that memory is deviating from the norm, right? So if you are sitting on the vendor side or on the server side, you are not seeing any deviation, everything works fine. But on the individual user level, those deviations, data drifting, right, is happening, and those data drifts causing all those wrong recommendations.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it'll be fascinating to see how this plays out over the next couple of years. Really appreciate the research that you're doing, and thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate it, Dr.
Hope it
Ali.
was useful. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Right.
And I'm Dan Dotson, and this is Cyber Survivor.